All right, diving in today, we're taking a look at Bitcoin,
Bitcoin.
and specifically Bitcoin.org.
Okay.
It's described as a community-funded project, which I thought was interesting to lay out kind of like the what and the why of Bitcoin.
Yeah, seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing today. Just from reading the homepage, it seems like it's a lot more than just like another way to pay for things.
It's
They're
definitely
another currency, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that always fascinates me about Bitcoin is we often hear it described as a digital currency, right?
Yeah.
And it is that.
Sure.
But it's really a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's a whole system.
Yeah.
It's a whole technology
Yeah.
that has the potential to really like fundamentally change
Wow.
how we think about money and value.
Okay.
And that's why it's so fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So just from reading this homepage, a few things kind of jumped out to me as potentially really interesting, and maybe we can dig into these a little bit more. One is that it says it operates without any banks or central authority.
Yeah.
So that right there is like, wow.
That's a big one.
That's different, right?
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's like, that's one of the fundamental things that sets Bitcoin apart from any traditional financial system.
Yeah.
We're so used to having banks and governments and these central authorities kind of controlling and overseeing and validating everything.
Totally.
Bitcoin says, no, we don't need that.
Okay.
We can do this without you.
All right, so that's one thing. Another thing it says is that it's open source.
Yes.
Meaning anyone can participate.
That's a key principle of Bitcoin and really kind of the whole cryptocurrency space is this idea of decentralization.
Oh, okay.
Right. So open source means that the code, the software that runs Bitcoin is publicly available. Anyone can look at it, anyone can audit it, anyone can contribute to it.
So it's totally transparent then.
It's all out there for anyone to see.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's a really powerful concept.
Okay.
Because it means that there's no central authority controlling it.
Right.
It's a community-driven project in a very real sense.
Okay. And then the last thing that jumped out to me was that it says it's designed to enable uses that traditional payment systems just can't handle.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what does that even mean?
So this is where we start to get into some of the really like mind-bending possibilities of Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because we're so used to thinking about money in a certain way,
right?
And how we use it and what we can do with it.
Totally.
But Bitcoin, because it's built on this fundamentally different technology, it opens up possibilities that we haven't even really begun to explore.
Okay, so give me an example. Like, what's something that Bitcoin can do that like my credit card or PayPal can't do?
Well, so one example is what are called microtransactions.
Microtransactions.
So imagine, you're reading an article online.
Yeah.
And you really like it, and you want to tip the author a few cents.
Okay.
You can't really do that with a credit card.
Right.
The fees would be more than the amount you're trying to send.
Right.
But with Bitcoin, you can send fractions of a penny.
Okay.
Very easily.
Interesting.
And with very low fees.
All right.
So suddenly this whole world of micropayments becomes possible.
Okay, so that's one example.
That's one.
And so this peer-to-peer technology that Bitcoin uses, is that how that happens? Like instead of going through a bank, it's like everyone is kind of connected.
Yeah, so peer-to-peer just means that instead of having to go through a central intermediary, like a bank, you can transact directly with another person.
Okay.
So it's like
I'm sending an email, but instead of an email, I'm sending money.
It's a good analogy, yeah.
Okay.
You're basically cutting out the middleman.
Wow. So this is like a whole like global town square where like everyone has a voice?
That's a great way to put it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's this idea that we can create a financial system that is more democratic.
Okay.
That is more inclusive.
Yeah.
That gives power to the individual.
Okay, so it's not just like a tech thing. This is like a whole...
It's a philosophy.
Philosophy.
It's a movement.
Wow, this is getting interesting.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to understand not just the technical details of how Bitcoin works,
right,
but also the philosophy behind it.
Okay.
The vision of the people who created it.
Okay, so that's huge right there.
Absolutely.
So, but how does that actually work in practice? Like you said, it's more than just another way to pay.
Right.
But like, how does it actually...
So let's talk about how it works.
Yeah.
So one of the key concepts here is something called the blockchain.
Okay, the blockchain.
Now, you probably heard that term thrown around a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
But it's actually not that complicated.
Okay.
Think of it like a giant digital ledger.
Okay.
A record of every Bitcoin transaction that has ever been made.
Got it.
But instead of this ledger being kept in one central location, like a bank's database, it's distributed across thousands of computers all over the world.
Okay, so it's not like stored in one place.
Exactly.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Wow.
And that's what makes it so secure.
Okay, so how does that work? Like if I buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, where does that go?
So when you buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, that transaction is broadcast to the entire network.
Whole network.
And all of these computers that are part of the network, they verify the transaction.
Okay, and how do they do that?
They use some fancy cryptography and math.
Okay.
But basically, they're making sure that you have the Bitcoin that you're trying to spend.
Okay.
And that you're not trying to spend the same Bitcoin twice.
Right, got it.
Double spending.
Okay.
And once the transaction is verified,
it
gets added to the blockchain.
Okay.
So this giant digital ledger gets updated with a new block containing your transaction.
All right, so like a running tab of every Bitcoin transaction that ever happened.
It's a public record.
Wow. Okay, and that's why it's so secure, because
That's why it's so secure.
Distributed.
Because to tamper with it, you would have to hack into thousands of computers.
Simultaneously, basically.
All over the world.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really cool system.
Pretty ingenious.
It is.
When you think about it.
All right, so I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. But I still have a bunch more questions.
Sure, let's hear them.
So like, who's in charge of maintaining this blockchain?
Well, that's another fascinating thing about Bitcoin, is that there's no one person or organization in charge.
So it's like a...
Self-regulating?
Yeah, it's a self-regulating system.
Okay.
It's run by the network itself.
Okay.
And there are individuals and companies that participate in maintaining the blockchain.
Okay.
They're called miners.
Miners.
And they basically contribute their computing power to verify transactions and add them to the blockchain.
Got it.
And they're incentivized to do this.
Okay.
Because they get rewarded with Bitcoin.
Oh.
So it's like a self-sustaining ecosystem.
Wow. Okay.
Where everyone is working together to keep the network running smoothly.
Okay, so that's wild. I mean, it
is wild.
Really cool, though. Like,
it's a different way.
A totally different way of thinking about how systems can work, how money can work.
Absolutely.
And it's really challenging a lot of our assumptions about how things should be.
Okay, so I'm getting there.
Good.
But I still have a few more questions.
Right, fire away.
So we said Bitcoin is digital, right?
Yes.
It's a digital currency.
Yes.
So like, how does that actually work as money? It's not like I can hold it in my hand.
Right. So think of it like this.
Okay.
Bitcoin is essentially a digital token that represents value.
Okay.
And you can transfer these tokens electronically to anyone on the Bitcoin network.
Got it.
And the blockchain acts as a public record.
Okay.
Verifying that you sent those tokens.
Yeah.
And that the recipient now owns them.
Okay, so no bank or government needs to sign off on that or validate it.
A network itself
validates
the transaction.
So what gives Bitcoin its value in the first place?
That's a great question, and that's something that a lot of people struggle to wrap their heads around.
It's hard.
Because it's not like traditional currencies that are backed by
gold
or something tangible.
Right, yeah.
Bitcoin's value is derived from a combination of factors.
Okay, like what?
One is scarcity.
Scarcity, okay.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins.
Wow, okay.
In existence.
All right.
So there's a limited supply.
Okay, so that's built in.
It's built in to the protocol.
Okay, so it's like digital gold, kind of.
It's often compared to digital gold.
Okay.
Because gold is also a scarce resource.
Right, okay.
Another factor is the security and transparency of the blockchain.
Okay.
People trust
it's not going anywhere.
That the system is secure.
Right.
That their transactions will be reported accurately.
Okay.
And that it's very difficult to tamper with.
And then also the network itself gives it value because
the more people use, the more demand there is.
Okay.
The higher the price goes.
Got it.
So it's a self-reinforcing cycle.
Interesting. Okay.
In a way.
So, okay, I'm starting to kind of get it. I'm like, I'm getting there.
I'm glad to hear that.
But let's talk practical for a sec.
Right.
Like, say I want to try this out, right?
Yeah.
I want to get some Bitcoin.
Okay.
Where do I even buy this stuff?
Well, there are a few different ways
Okay.
to acquire Bitcoin.
Okay.
One of the most common is through online exchanges.
Exchanges.
These are basically websites or platforms
Oh, okay.
where you can buy and sell Bitcoin,
Okay.
kind of like stock trading platforms.
Got it.
You can also buy Bitcoin
Yeah.
through peer-to-peer marketplaces
Peer-to-peer marketplaces.
where you're buying directly from other individuals.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There are also Bitcoin ATMs
Bitcoin ATMs.
popping up in various places.
Wow.
So there are a lot of different options.
All right. So let's say I buy some Bitcoin.
Okay.
How do I keep it safe? Do I need like
You need a digital wallet,
a digital wallet? Okay.
which is basically a software application that allows you to store,
Okay.
send, and
Surplus.
receive Bitcoin.
Okay.
There are different types of wallets
Okay.
with varying levels of security.
Okay.
Some wallets are apps on your phone.
Okay.
Others are physical devices that look like USB drives.
Oh, interesting.
So it really depends on
Okay.
your needs and risk tolerance.
All right. So like a lot of options there.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to recap for a sec, because this is
Yeah, no problem.
like a lot of info.
A lot to take in.
So Bitcoin is a digital currency that operates on a decentralized network called the blockchain.
That's right.
It's secure and transparent and controlled by a network of users, not a single entity.
Exactly.
You can buy it on exchanges and store it in digital wallets.
You got it.
Am I getting this right?
You're doing great.
Okay.
You're picking it up quickly.
All right. Good. Good.
Yeah.
This is pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Very good.
Like it's like we're
It's a whole new world.
witnessing the birth of a whole new financial system.
Yeah, and that's what's so exciting about it.
Yeah.
Is that it's still early days.
Okay.
We're just at the beginning of this.
Okay.
And nobody knows exactly where it's going to go.
But it's clear that it has the potential to be really disruptive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
there's got to be downsides, right? Like
of course.
no system is perfect.
Right. So let's talk about some of the challenges
Okay. Yeah.
that Bitcoin faces.
Because it's not all, they can't all be roses, right?
Exactly.
It's got to be.
No technology is without its drawbacks.
Right.
And Bitcoin is no exception.
Okay. So what are some of the things that,
So one of the biggest challenges
yeah.
is its price volatility.
Okay. Price volatility. So.
Yeah, so the price of Bitcoin
Yeah.
can fluctuate dramatically.
Okay. So like it's not a,
In a single day.
right.
It can go up or down,
All right.
10%, 20%,
Wow.
even more sometimes.
So not exactly a stable investment.
It can be a roller coaster ride.
Okay. And that's one of the challenges.
That's one of the big challenges.
Okay.
Because it makes it difficult
Yeah.
to use as a currency for everyday transactions.
Right. If you don't know what it's going to be worth tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you buy a cup of coffee today
Right.
and tomorrow the price of Bitcoin crashes,
Right.
suddenly that coffee costs you a lot more
And you thought it would.
than you thought it would.
Okay. So that's one thing.
That's one thing.
What else?
Another challenge is regulation.
Regulation. Okay.
Governments around the world
Right.
are still trying to figure out
Right.
how to handle Bitcoin
Okay.
and other cryptocurrencies.
And that makes it hard to, I imagine.
It creates uncertainty
Oh,
for businesses,
right.
for individuals who want to use it,
Makes sense.
because they don't know what the rules are.
Right.
They don't know if it's going to be legal.
Right.
They don't know how it's going to be taxed.
Right. Okay.
So that's a big hurdle
Okay.
that needs to be overcome.
Then what about security?
Security is another important consideration.
Because we all hear those stories about,
Right.
people losing their Bitcoin to hackers or whatever.
Yeah. So it's important to understand that
Yeah.
Bitcoin itself,
Yeah.
the technology,
Yeah.
is very secure.
Okay.
The blockchain
Yeah.
is incredibly difficult to hack.
But the problem is.
But a lot of the security breaches
Yeah.
happen at the points where people interact with the system.
Okay. So like.
So, for example,
Yeah.
if you use a weak password
Yeah.
for your online exchange account,
Right.
or if you fall for a phishing scam,
Yeah.
that's how you can lose your Bitcoin.
So it's like any other financial
It's like online banking.
system.
You need to be careful.
Right.
You need to take precautions.
Okay. So due diligence.
Due diligence
And caution.
and common sense.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. So I'm starting to see
Yeah.
that this is
It's a complex.
it's an exciting ride.
It is.
And it's not.
But it's not without its risks.
Right.
And it's not for everyone.
Okay.
But if you're willing to learn
Yeah.
and take the necessary precautions,
Right.
it can be a very rewarding experience.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me
Sure.
about Bitcoin.org was this emphasis on decentralization.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about that a little bit.
Right.
But it seems like that's really like a core philosophy, this rejection of centralized control.
Absolutely.
It's almost like
it's a revolution.
Digital revolution.
Yeah. It's a movement towards greater financial freedom.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It is.
And a little bit daunting at the same time.
Yeah, because it's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental change
Totally.
in how we think about money.
Right. So we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a big topic.
This is a huge topic.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, I think the first step
Yeah.
for anyone who's interested in learning more
Yeah.
is to just keep learning.
Keep learning. Okay.
There are countless resources online.
Like what?
Articles, videos, forums,
Okay.
even entire communities
Okay.
dedicated to Bitcoin.
Like, just dive in.
Dive in, yeah.
Don't be afraid to
Ask questions.
ask questions.
Explore different perspectives.
All right, that's good advice.
Yeah, because it's a constantly evolving space.
Okay.
So there's always something new to learn.
Right.
And it's really up to each individual
Okay.
to decide how deep they want to go.
Wow. So we started with just this simple website,
Bitcoin.org.
bitcoin.org.
Yeah.
And we've ended up talking about
Yeah.
the potential for
A financial revolution.
a financial revolution,
Yeah.
a shift in power dynamics.
A glimpse into the future.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It is.
This deep dive is like a real eye-opener.
I'm glad you're finding it informative.
So I guess the biggest question is,
Yeah.
what role do we play in this? Right? Like,
That's the question, isn't it?
if this is really a paradigm shift,
Right.
what do we do?
Do you sit on the sidelines and watch it happen?
Yeah,
Do you jump in and become a participant?
right.
Or do you try to shape the future of this technology?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, it is.
And I think the answer is,
Yeah.
it's up to each of us to decide.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining us on this
Yeah.
deep dive into the world of Bitcoin.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back next time.
Sounds good.
With more
Yeah.
explorations and discoveries.
Looking forward to it.
All right, see you then.
See ya.
All right, so the blockchain.
The blockchain.
I keep hearing that word everywhere.
Yeah. It's a buzzword these days.
It is a buzzword. What is it?
So in simple terms,
Okay.
the blockchain is like a
Okay.
giant digital ledger,
Okay.
a record of every Bitcoin transaction ever made.
Okay, so every time someone buys something with Bitcoin or sends money overseas,
Every single transaction
it gets recorded.
gets recorded on the blockchain.
Wow. Okay, and this blockchain is kept where?
That's the key. It's not kept in any one place.
Okay, so it's not like a bank's database or
Exactly. It's distributed
Yeah.
across thousands of computers all over the world.
So it's like everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah,
Okay, and that's what makes it so secure.
that's a big part of it.
Okay.
Because to tamper with it,
Yeah.
you would have to hack into
All those computers
thousands of computers simultaneously.
all over the world.
That's pretty much impossible.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
It's like a giant puzzle
Okay.
where each transaction is a piece.
Okay.
And to change one piece, you'd have to change the entire puzzle
Wow.
across all those computers.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
So it's incredibly secure.
All right. But who's in charge of maintaining this blockchain?
That's another really interesting aspect of Bitcoin.
Okay.
Nobody's in charge in the traditional sense.
Okay, so no,
There's no CEO of the blockchain.
right, no central authority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's run by the network itself.
Okay.
And there are individuals and companies who participate in maintaining it.
Okay.
They're called miners.
Miners. Okay.
And they essentially contribute their computing power
Okay.
to verify transactions and add them to the blockchain.
So they're like the bookkeepers.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
They're the ones making sure everything is running smoothly.
Got it. And are they just doing this out of the goodness of their hearts?
Not quite. There's an incentive.
Okay, what is it?
They get rewarded with Bitcoin.
Oh, so they're getting paid in Bitcoin to
100%.
maintain the blockchain.
So it's a self-sustaining system
Interesting. Okay.
where everyone has a vested interest
Yeah.
in keeping it secure and operational.
Wow. So it's like a whole ecosystem then.
It is. It's a fascinating ecosystem.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
It's unlike anything we've seen before.
Okay, so we're starting to get into like the nitty-gritty now.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So we said Bitcoin is digital.
It is.
How does it actually work as money? It's not like
Right. You can't hold it.
I can hold it in my hand.
Right.
It's not like a dollar bill.
Exactly. So think of it like this.
Okay.
Bitcoin is essentially a digital token
Okay, a token.
that represents value.
Okay.
And you can transfer these tokens electronically to anyone on the Bitcoin network.
Okay, so I can send it to anyone in the world who has a
As long as they have
Bitcoin wallet or...
a Bitcoin wallet, yeah.
Okay.
You can send it to them.
And the blockchain
Yes.
keeps track of all that.
Acts as a public record.
So there's like a permanent record that I sent those Bitcoins and that the other person now owns them.
Exactly. And no bank or government needed.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if it's just digital tokens, what gives Bitcoin its value?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
literally.
Literally.
Because couldn't anyone just create their own?
That's what a lot of people ask.
Yeah,
And it's a valid question.
it is. So what makes Bitcoin special?
So Bitcoin's value comes from a combination of factors.
Okay.
One is scarcity.
Scarcity.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's built in.
That's built into the code.
So there's a finite supply.
A finite supply.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another factor is the security and transparency of the blockchain.
So people trust it.
People trust it.
Okay.
They trust that it's secure.
And they trust that their transactions will be recorded accurately.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that it's very difficult to tamper with.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about that.
Yeah.
And then also the network itself gives it value.
Absolutely. The more people use Bitcoin,
Yeah.
the more demand there is.
The more valuable it
The
becomes.
higher the price goes.
Right. So it's like a...
It's a self-reinforcing cycle.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like digital gold then.
It's often compared to digital gold.
Because it's scarce and people agree that it has value.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm starting to get the picture here.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
But let's get practical again for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
If I wanted to get started with Bitcoin, like where would I even buy it?
Well, there are a few different ways to acquire Bitcoin.
Okay.
One of the most common is through online exchanges.
Exchanges.
These are websites or platforms where you can buy and sell Bitcoin,
Got it.
kind of like stock trading platforms.
Oh, like a digital marketplace.
Exactly.
All right.
You can also buy Bitcoin through peer-to-peer marketplaces,
Peer-to-peer marketplaces.
where you're buying directly from other individuals.
Okay.
There are also Bitcoin ATMs popping up in various places.
Bitcoin ATMs. Wow.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more mainstream.
That's pretty wild.
So there are a lot of different options.
Okay, so let's say I buy some Bitcoin.
Right.
Where do I keep it?
You'll need a digital wallet,
A digital wallet.
which is basically a software application that allows you to store, send, and receive Bitcoin.
So like my digital piggy bank.
Exactly. That's a good way to think about it.
Okay, and are there different types of wallets?
There are, yeah.
My-
Some wallets are apps on your phone.
Okay.
Others are physical devices that look like USB drives.
Interesting.
So the choice depends on your needs and risk tolerance.
Okay, so like if I'm just getting started,
Yeah, if you're just dipping your toes in,
I probably don't need like
you
the...
probably don't need the Fort Knox of Bitcoin wallets.
You're right, exactly.
Start with something simple.
Okay, so let me just recap to make sure I'm getting all this.
Bitcoin is a digital currency that operates on a decentralized network called the blockchain.
That's right.
It's secure, transparent, and controlled by a network of users, not a single entity.
Exactly.
You can buy it on exchanges and store it in digital wallets.
You got it.
Did I get it?
You nailed it.
All right, I'm feeling pretty good about this.
I'm impressed.
This is pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is. It's a revolutionary technology.
It really is. It's like we're witnessing the birth of a whole new financial system.
It really does feel that way sometimes.
It does.
It's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's exciting and also a little bit scary, to be honest.
I understand that.
Because there's so much we don't know yet.
Exactly. We're still in the early days.
But it's clear that this has the potential to be really disruptive.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the potential downsides.
Okay, let's get real.
Because it can't all be sunshine and roses, right?
Of course not. Every technology has its challenges.
So what are some of the challenges that Bitcoin faces? One of the biggest is its price volatility.
Okay, price volatility. So that means that the price of Bitcoin can go up and down a lot
A lot, yeah.
and quickly.
Sometimes very quickly.
So it's not exactly a stable investment then.
It can be a roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
Okay, so if I buy some Bitcoin today,
Yeah,
it could be worth half as much tomorrow.
it's possible, yeah.
Wow, okay.
That's one of the risks.
Yeah, that's a big risk.
It's something to be aware of,
Definitely.
especially if you're thinking about using Bitcoin for everyday transactions.
Right, because you don't know.
If you buy a cup of coffee today
Yeah,
and tomorrow the price of Bitcoin crashes,
right.
that coffee just got a lot more expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's not ideal for everyday purchases at this point.
Okay, so price volatility is a big challenge.
It is.
What
Another
else?
challenge is regulation.
Regulation. Okay, so like governments are still trying to figure out.
Exactly. They're trying to figure out how to handle Bitcoin
Right.
and other cryptocurrencies.
And that creates uncertainty for businesses and individuals
It does.
who want to use it.
Yeah. Because they don't know what the rules are.
Right.
They don't know if it's going to be illegal.
Right.
They don't know how it's going to be taxed.
Yeah, it's a big gray area.
It is. And that uncertainty can be a big hurdle.
Okay, so regulation is another big challenge.
It is.
What about security?
Security is another important consideration.
Because we hear all those stories about people losing their Bitcoin to hackers.
Yeah, it's important to understand that Bitcoin itself,
Yeah.
the technology is very secure.
Okay.
The blockchain is incredibly difficult to hack.
Yeah.
But a lot of the security breaches
Yeah.
happen at the points where people interact with the system.
Okay, so it's not the technology itself. It's like
It's the human element.
human error, basically.
Exactly. So, for example, if you use a weak password for your online exchange account,
Right.
or if you fall for a phishing scam,
Got it. Okay, so it's like any other financial system.
it's like online banking. You need to be careful.
You need to be smart about it.
You need to take precautions.
Okay, so due diligence and caution.
Due diligence and common sense.
All right, I like it.
Good.
So we've talked about some of the potential downsides, some of the challenges.
Yeah.
But it still sounds like a pretty exciting ride.
It is. It's a rapidly evolving space.
It is.
And it's certainly not for everyone.
Yeah.
But for those who are intrigued by the possibilities of a decentralized financial system,
Yeah.
Bitcoin offers a glimpse into a very different future.
Okay, and speaking of the future, one thing that really struck me about Bitcoin.org
Sure.
was this emphasis on decentralization.
Yeah, it's a core principle.
You know, we've talked about that a little bit, but it seems like that's really like a core part of the philosophy.
Absolutely. It's about rejecting centralized control.
It's almost like a digital revolution.
It is. It's a movement towards greater financial freedom.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
It's about empowering individuals.
It's exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time.
I agree. It's a paradigm shift.
It is.
It's a fundamental change in how we think about money and power.
So, where do we go from here? What are the next steps for someone who wants to learn more about Bitcoin?
Well, the first step is to keep learning.
Keep learning about it.
There are countless resources online.
Like what kind of resources?
Articles, videos, forums, even entire communities dedicated to Bitcoin.
So just dive in and start exploring.
Dive in. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay, so it's a journey of discovery then.
It is. It's a journey of discovery.
We started with a simple website,
Bitcoin.org.
Bitcoin.org,
Yeah.
and we ended up diving deep into
The fundamentals of a revolutionary technology.
its potential impact on society.
And even our own role in this
Mhm.
emerging landscape.
It's pretty incredible.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
So what you're saying is this is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. The real learning happens when you start exploring on your own,
Okay.
experimenting, engaging with the community, and forming your own opinions.
So it's like we've opened a door to a whole new world.
That's a great way to put it.
And now it's up to each of us to decide
Yeah.
whether to step through and see what's on the other side.
Exactly, and that's the exciting part.
It is exciting.
The future of Bitcoin is unwritten,
It is.
and it's up to all of us to decide what that future looks like.
Okay, that's a powerful thought.
It is. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also incredibly empowering.
It is, and that's what's so cool about this whole thing.
Yeah, it's a chance to be a part of something truly transformative.
All right, so I guess the biggest question for our listeners is,
Yeah, the big question.
if Bitcoin represents this paradigm shift in finance,
Right.
what role do they want to play in its future?
Will they be an observer, a participant, or perhaps even a shaper of this emerging landscape?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
It's a question that everyone needs to ask themselves.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. It's been a deep dive.
We started with Bitcoin.org, a seemingly simple website.
A simple website that led us down a rabbit hole.
It did. We ended up exploring the potential for a financial revolution,
A shift in power dynamics.
a glimpse into a future that could be radically different from what we know today.
And it's just the beginning.
It is. There's still so much to learn and explore.
Absolutely. The world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is vast and constantly evolving.
So we encourage our listeners to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
The answers are out there, waiting to be discovered.
You know, it's kind of amazing to think that something that started as like an online white paper has just blossomed into this whole movement, you know?
Absolutely.
This push for a different way of...
Yeah, it's the power of ideas.
Yeah.
Especially when they're paired with technology.
Right.
And Bitcoin really is a perfect example of that. You know, it's this idea that we can create a financial system that is more transparent.
Right.
More equitable, more accessible.
Yeah.
And that really resonates with a lot of people.
It does. It does. And it's challenging, the very concept of, you know...
It challenges the status quo.
How we define and manage value.
It challenges the power structures that have been in place for centuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
That's what we've talked about.
And it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, it is exciting.
How that's playing out.
We talked about microtransactions and cross-border payments.
Right.
But what are some of the other, like, broader implications of a system like Bitcoin taking hold?
Well, one of the most significant implications is the potential for financial inclusion.
Financial inclusion.
So imagine a world
where
financial services are more accessible to those who are currently excluded from traditional banking systems.
So you're talking about like the unbanked populations in developing countries.
People in developing countries.
Yeah.
People who are facing censorship or restrictions on their financial activities.
Right. Okay.
Bitcoin could provide a lifeline for these people.
So
it's not just about, you know,
tech geeks and early adopters.
Tech geeks in Silicon Valley and...
This is about...
Yeah, this is about...
empowering people who have been left out.
It's about giving people
system.
Control over their own financial lives.
Yeah, I like that.
And it goes beyond individuals.
Okay.
Businesses.
Yeah.
Could also benefit greatly from a system like Bitcoin.
Okay. In what way?
Well, for example, in supply chain management.
Okay.
Imagine being able to track goods as they move through the supply chain using the blockchain.
Okay.
That would provide incredible transparency and accountability.
So it's not just finance then, we're talking...
It's not just finance.
Multiple industries.
It has the potential to impact virtually every industry.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's really about changing the way we think about trust and value.
But it's not a utopia. Right.
No, of course not.
There are real world challenges that need to be addressed.
Challenges and concerns.
So, like, what happens if things go wrong?
Right, that's a big question.
Who's responsible?
Who's responsible if there's a dispute?
Yeah.
Who's responsible if there's a technical glitch?
Right, and those are questions.
Those are questions that are still being debated.
Yeah. So.
And there's no easy answer.
Right.
Because it's such a new system.
So we're just at the beginning of this journey.
We are.
There's still a lot to
figure out.
And a lot to learn. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
It is.
Right? Because
it's exciting.
Kind of creating the future as we go.
We're writing the rules as we go.
It is. It's a little bit daunting.
It can be.
But it's also really exciting.
It is.
This deep dive has been quite the eye-opener.
I'm glad to hear that.
You know, we started with bitcoin.org.
A simple website.
A seemingly simple website.
Yeah.
And we've ended up exploring the potential for like a financial revolution.
A shift in power dynamic.
A glimpse into a future that could be radically different.
Absolutely.
From what we know today.
And it all started with that one white paper.
Yeah.
That somebody posted online.
It's crazy. So I guess the biggest question for our listeners is...
what role will they play?
If this is really a paradigm shift,
right?
What do they do?
Do they sit on the sidelines?
Yeah.
Do they jump in and become a participant?
Right.
Or do they try to shape the future?
That's a big question to ponder.
It is.
And I think the answer is up to each individual.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong answer.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin.
My pleasure.
I think we've all learned a lot.
I know I have.
And it's given us a lot to think about.
It has.
So we encourage our listeners to continue exploring.
Yeah.
Keep asking questions.
Keep learning.
And to decide for themselves what role they want to play in this exciting new world.
Well said.
Thanks for listening.